You're just supposed to start shooting. I mean, unless you want to change, so you would check sectors, you can't. Sorry.
I mean, it's like.
No. And then express like, okay. I know that like.
All right, so has everybody copied these two? Hey, everybody.
Yes.
These two folders right here, the focus stacking one, it's on our class partition, and the panorama file. I want you to grab copy both of those to your desktop. I'm going to trade mine over really quick. And reset my workspace. Okay, so, all right. First thing that I want to show you guys really quickly, we talked a little bit about doing some of this work, having Photoshop do some of the heavy lifting for you in terms of lining up possibly panoramas. So that's the first one they're going to look at. If we actually look at the panorama folder itself, let me get to where my copy of it is. So if you look inside this panorama folder, you don't need to do this. I'm just going to drag mine onto Bridge so that you can sort of see what's going on here. This is actually a copyrighted photograph by a guy by the name of Seth, and I'm not going to remember Seth's last name, but I'm sure it's in his metadata here. These were images that he used during a Lightroom workshop. So I actually had permission to use these. I just don't want you guys, I don't know, doing some weird shit with this and putting it up on your Instagram page, because he'll sue us both. Anyway, what this is a group of images of is quite simply, he lives in Miami. He went up to the rooftop of his building. He pointed his camera out sort of to the southeast at sunset, and he did not use a tripod for this. This is all handheld, and he took a series of pictures, and he simply was rotating. He starts facing the southeast, and he goes all the way over to the southwest. And you can just see that these images overlap one another, and that's all that's going on here. What you also should notice about this is that there's a radical shift in exposure. This was also set on auto exposure. So for instance, if you look at this sky in this image right now, and you compare it to this one right here, you can see that the exposures of this are massively different. So at any rate, we are going to stitch these together. We're going to get Photoshop to do the work for us. So if you open up Photoshop and go into Photoshop, we do not open the images in Photoshop. Now, the one drag about doing this is that so far in this class, we have always opened our files as smart objects in Photoshop. And the reason that that's important to us is because that embeds a copy of the raw data inside of our file. That part is what we want to do. However, that's not what we want to do in this case with these guys, because in order to stitch this stuff together, two things have to happen. Number one, the images need to actually be resized. They need to be transformed. And number two, they actually will go in and be the exposure parts of them can actually be manipulated as well. So ultimately, in the end, we do not end up with smart objects that will build this thing. You will still end up with a full res file. Each one of the images that are opened up will be a full res image, but they will not be smart objects. That's just one of the downsides of this. Sooner or later, they may, they have released, or they're getting ready to release Photoshop 2017 CC right now. Say what?
got it.
You already got it. So this may not be the case. This may work on smart objects in the new version of Photoshop. I just found out today that they'd even released it, so I haven't had a chance to see it. But nonetheless, so this is going to be a destructive move, but it is what it is. Okay, so in order to do this, come up to the File menu in Photoshop with nothing open. Come down to Automate. And down at the very bottom, there's a thing called Photo Merge. And if you do that, it'll open up a dialog box. There are several different ways. If you get lost in this, just yell out and stop me. There are several different ways to actually auto-merge images. Your best bet, in my opinion, is to try auto first. If auto does not work for you to begin with, then you can go after trying to put these together different ways. And the final way down here at the very bottom actually lets you manually try to blend these things together. But at any rate, we need to find the images that we want to do the photo merging on. So you need to click on the Browse button, and then you need to navigate to that folder that has got those panorama images in it. And that's not where mine's going to be. So hang on, I'm getting there too. Yep, so select the very top one, hold down the Shift key and select the bottom one so that you've got all of them selected, and go ahead and open those up. So when you open those up, you have got a couple of other options to consider. The first option that's down here is to blend these images together. We're actually going to start with none of these check marks on. Hopefully these computers will be fast enough that this will go pretty seamless, but I want to show you exactly what is going on. So the first thing it's going to do is it's simply going to try to align all of these images. So we're going to say simply OK to this. So again, auto for your layout, all of these are unchecked, and say OK. So you just need to let this thing run. An image will open up, and it will start to do its own thing. And this is what you get if you have a computer as fast as mine. Okay, so in its own way, pretty impressive, right? If you want to see the entire image, simply double-click on the hand, and it should reduce it so you can see the whole thing. So what you get is you can see where things were lined up very well. That part worked out pretty well. However, there are clear seams between all of these images, and then there's all this dead space that exists on the outside of them as well. So we're going to do this again. Again, same thing. File menu, down to Automate, down to Photo Merge. Browse for those exact same set of images again and select all of them and open them up. This time we're actually going to leave blend images together, and what this is going to do is it's going to create a set of masks that will get rid of the seams that we're seeing between the images. It will also go in here and it will try to reprocess these files so that we actually do get a seamless sense of the sky, so you don't get a jump from this pale sky to the more saturated one. So go ahead and say OK to this. It'll do another one for you. And now you can compare the two. I'm simply dragging the one I did down underneath the first one. So you can see it does this remarkable job of actually putting these together. If you look at your layer stack on the side over here, you'll also see, if you want to see what just an individual layer looks like, hover your mouse over the eyeball, hold down the Option key, and click, and it will turn everybody else off. And you can see how complex the masks that this thing creates are. There's another thing that's going on here too. Photoshop also realizes, so for instance, if you zoom into the canalway, you will see that the canalway is actually made up of primarily one single image. Photoshop understands that there's movement in this part of the image. There wasn't in the buildings. There may be a little bit in the sky, but not really. But there is movement. There are waves in the canal here. So Photoshop understands that and actually dedicates one single image as much as possible to making up that part of the total composite, so that you don't see motion in the water, or you'll see ghosting or blurring in the water. So that's the next one that we've got. And then finally, I'm going to double click on the hand to jump back out. Then finally, we're going to do one last one. So again, up to the file menu, down to automate, and down to photo merge. Again, auto is still on. Click on browse to get to these files. Hold down the shift key to select all of them. Go ahead and open that up. And this time we're going to leave on blend images together. However, what vignette removal is designed to do is a lot of people who shoot panoramas use wide angle lenses to do that. Wide angle lenses are notorious for vignetting at the edges. This will actually try to remove that vignetting. In my experience, it doesn't help a whole lot. The geometric distortion correction, in my opinion, actually introduces geometric distortion, so I don't use that. But this thing down at the bottom, the content-aware fill transparent areas, that's what these checkerboard areas are. If you look at the images behind, those checkerboard areas actually are transparent pixels. So if you click on content aware, what Photoshop is going to then do is it's going to look at the surrounding area of these transparent pixels, and it's going to try to fill in information. So go ahead and say okay to that one. And hit Command D to deselect. That's what I wanted to hear was, oh my God.
Yeah, guys, I'm way ahead of you. Okay, it's fine.
Lexi is a whole 5 hours ahead of you on this one. So sometimes this works really well, sometimes not so well. If you zoom into the lower right-hand corner, you'll see where content aware actually ran into trouble, and it's this lower water area right down in here. It actually added an area down here that shouldn't belong in this part right here. So we're going to do this one last time. Actually, we're not going to do it one last time. Go back to your to the second of the images, the one where you actually, where you had the seamless one put together, but you still had the transparent pixels at the top. If you look at your layers palette right now, you'll actually see that you've got 7 layers that are making up this composite. We need to create a layer that is the merge of all of them. So in order to do that, select the very top layer, and then hold down the Command key. That's the key just to the left of your space bar. The Option key, the key just to the left of it. The Shift key, which is on the row just above, all the way to the left, and hit the letter E. It stands for Engelhard. They named this thing after me. No, not really. So at any rate, you've now got a merged version of all of these layers. It's all together in one single one. There's no layer masks on it at all. We're going to actually try to use content aware, but we're not going to do it for the lower part of the photograph down here. We are just going to do it up here for the sky at the top. Just so you guys, this is another retouching tool that you should know how to work. So if you hit the L key, which is the lasso tool, you can actually come up here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. When you're using the content aware tool, this is important. You do not just select the transparent area. You actually need to select part of the real image to tell Photoshop what to use to fill in. You need to tell Photoshop what source material to actually use. So I am going to select this whole area with the lasso tool, but I'm going to select not a big area of the sky, but a little bit of the sky. So I'm simply going to drag along here, and I'm coming all the way out. If you need to then move your image so that you can see more of it, if you hold down the space bar, you get the hand, and you can temporarily scoot your image over and then let go, and you'll continue with the lasso tool. And then come up to the top and then go all the way around again to complete this move. And I'm just selected the top part of the sky, and you can see I've got an active selection going on here. I'm missing the little bit of corner right here. Look up at my screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I'm missing this little bit of corner right here. So to simply add to your selection, you hold down the Shift key. We've gone through all of this before. We're just adding a little bit to that selection. So I've pretty much got the whole sky at the very top selected. I do not have the side over here. I don't have anything on the bottom. I've just got this guy alone. Then you go up to the Edit menu, down to Fill. A dialog box will open up, and in the drop-down menu, you select Content Aware. This is a content-aware film. You would leave the blending mode normal and 100% opacity. You would also probably click on color adaptation. It'll actually just do a better blend for you. And say, okay. And Command D to deselect. Oh, actually, that's weird. What happened on my screen, I'm going to actually go back in my history because I have still got a feathering on my lasso selection tool. It's this guy right here, and you could just see what ended up happening. So I have to change my feathering back to 0. That happened in a different class. Command D to deselect, and then I'm going to make that selection again. But it should have worked flawlessly for you guys. Did it? No, it didn't work.
I was just watching you again. So yeah, because when I do that, it connects it all back together. Like it does that. And yours just makes one line.
So, Command D to deselect. And then draw your make this a little bit smaller. Space and option. Get the negative tool and just grab the and then use the lasso tool and LT. Yeah, but you're letting go. You need to select the whole thing. You need to draw around the top. Command D to deselect.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay, so now what?
I don't know. I like kind of made it like smaller.
No, you really can't. But you got to be at that.
Me either, like, you just have like really have really bad.
Yeah, you do have to do that. So
Yeah.
here, Command D to deselect. You guys need to work on your mouse skills. All right, so I'm going to simply start to drag it here. Pick your mouse up if you want. And drag again. Wait, what am I waiting?
Oh, we can go on to this?
Yes.
Oh,
you
I
gotta
think
go.
that's why you did it. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it's kind of like cracks.
And now, up to the fill, content aware.
What was the second step after the last one?
Say what?
What was the other step after the last one?
Okay, so you select the area that you want content aware to fix. And then here, I'll just go back in space. So I've got the lasso selection around this, up to the edit menu, down to fill, and select from the drop-down menu, content aware. And then check color adaptation and say okay. And it will create a new sky for you. Now, in my case, I feel like the clouds right here are still a mistake. So I'm going to hit Command D to deselect, and then I'm going to just select those clouds again, and I'm going to do content aware fill again. And they're gone. So what? Are we good on this, guys? Yeah, no. Yeah, no, that's okay, that's okay.
Oh, it's
Right.
I can't reach the end.
Yeah, well, yeah, it would help if you just started a little smaller, but that's
I
okay.
tried to, but I still couldn't do it.
And you don't have to finish it now. You can
Oh,
actually
I know.
simply go up to the top and you're gonna go outside of the frame. No, all the way up, keep going.
Oh.
And now,
I'll just limit to 0.
wow, I had no idea we needed to get to mouse 101. So that's okay.
Wow.
Here, everybody take a look.
Oh, I see.
I'm gonna get rid of my other images so that you can see. You don't need to have this monster image going here. I'm gonna go back in history on mine. Everybody look at my screen really quick. I'm gonna Command D to deselect this. I'm gonna get rid of this other image. Make your image small enough that you can actually do this. Okay, so I've got this image right here. I am going to simply start down at the bottom here, and I'm dragging to the left, to the right. I'm grabbing a little bit of the sky underneath, which I want to do. Now, once I get to this part, I don't want to try to draw that line again. I'm going to go completely outside of Photoshop's frame. Look at where my mouse is. And then I'm going to come back in down here at the bottom, and it will select all of that for me. You guys have been taught to draw inside the lines and color in the borders way too much. Right? Yeah, okay. So then again, up to edit, down to fill, drop down menu, content aware, color adaptation, say okay, and it fills it. Command D to deselect, and we're off to the races. Okay, this part down here would actually be trickier. So we can try to select just an area that would be the water and see what then happens there. And again, up to fill content aware, and okay to that. And again, it brings in that part of the land again, so that's really not going to work for us there. But anyway, when this thing works amazing. Okay, you can close that guy up. So that's one thing that we can actually do, and that's building panoramas. However, there's another thing we can do, and it's the other thing I actually ask you to grab, and it's the focus stacking one. In this case, there's two images inside the focus stacking one. They're both TIFF files. If you can just drag those on top of Photoshop. In this case, we actually start with them open in Photoshop first. So with these open up in Photoshop, I just want you to take one image and drag it on top of the other one. Hold down the Shift key before you let go, and they will come in register. And then you can close up the second of the two, because you've got both of those, you've got both layers in one single image.
For me, it opened up in Camera Raw.
Then just go ahead and say open as image. Say what?
It's only when it goes to Camera Raw.
Okay, wait, yours are going into Camera Raw?
Yeah. And then only one was opening up.
Okay, all right, here, I'm going to show you how you fix that. Go ahead and close. If you've got anything open in Photoshop right now, go ahead and close it up for me, please. Then I want you to go launch Bridge really quickly. Ironically, you set the preferences for Camera Raw in Bridge. So do you guys have Bridge open? You simply come up to the Adobe Bridge drop-down menu and come down to Camera Raw Preferences. And at the very bottom of Camera Raw Preferences, you will have a thing that says JPEG and TIFF handling. You want to disable both. So disable JPEG support and disable TIFF support and say OK. To be honest with you, now that they have a Camera Raw filter in Photoshop, there's really no reason to be doing that anymore. So now when you go to that file, to the folder focus stacking, grab both of those images, drag both of them on top of the Photoshop icon. They both should open up. You may have tab behavior on. If you've got tabbed, they came in as two different tabs, simply tear one tab off so that you have two separate images. Are you guys good? Okay, then it doesn't matter which one, just grab one of the layers and on the top image, drag it onto the image that was on the back or underneath, hold down the Shift key and let go, and they will come in register, in as much as they can be in register. And then you can close the original file that opened up. So this is what I've got. I've got one file that's got two layers, and if you undo one layer, you see that there's a focus shift. Has everybody got that? Anybody not? Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is a two-step process. So the first step process is this. You need to actually select both of these layers. So in order to do that, you hold down the Shift key and you select the second of the layers. You come over then to Edit, down to, and this is a two-step process. You see this thing that says Auto Align Layers? We're going to do that one first, and then we are going to do auto blending of these layers. But the auto align layers is the first one to do. And in some cases, I know that when Kenny does a lot of his stuff, he actually uses this command a lot to do automatic alignment. So at any rate, if you've got multiple images that have a lot of overlap, basically 40% overlap, this auto align layers will actually do a pretty good job. So go ahead and let go. And you will see a dialog box opens up, and this dialog box looks somewhat familiar to the panoramic dialog box that we had before. You've still got the auto, the different ways that you can align these layers. Go ahead and leave the auto one on. Do not bother with vignette removal or geometric distortion. You can leave both of those off and simply say OK. And what you will see that ends up happening that is actually shocking, and this is the reason they can't do it on smart objects, is if you turn off one of your layers, you will actually see that the image has been, that one of your layers has been resized. You can see there's a transparent border around this. And the reason that happened, I'm going to go back in history before I did this auto align. You'll notice that in my top image right now, because the top image is front focused, the image is actually, the fly is actually a little bit larger in this image. So when you do this, not only does the focus shift, but the size of the fly also shifts. When you do the auto align layer, it actually resizes the top fly. And now when you turn this on and off, the size of the fly is perfectly consistent. The only thing that is changing is the focus shift. Did that work for you guys? Okay, so still with both of these layers selected, we're going to do the second part now. So up to the edit menu, down to auto blend layers, and a dialog will come up. And you have two options in this dialog. You can actually do panoramas like this. So we could have opened those panoramas and those files and done a panorama. In that case, you would actually select the panorama button up here. But in our case, we want to stack these. This is, again, focus stacking. You would also leave seamless tones and colors checked and content-aware fill transparent areas. So the areas that are outside that were transparent on this top layer because the image was made smaller will be filled using content-aware. And simply say, okay. And now what you will see is it is actually created, it's created a merged layer for you because it needed to put together a merged layer to do the content aware work. But if not, you can actually see what's going on underneath. Again, if you hold down the option key and click on one of the eyeballs, that's what one of the masks looks like. It's actually grabbing only the front part of the fly. If you, again, hold down the option key and click on the other eyeball, you'll see that that's the part of the image that it's using to actually do the focus stacking part. In my opinion, it's actually missing a focus in the middle area. You've got the front of the fly is good, the back of the fly is good, but in the middle area, the wings seem a little bit soft to me. But that's when you do focus stacking, you can use unlimited number of images. The only thing that'll stop you is how much RAM you've got in your computer and how fast your processor actually works. Are there questions about this? Okay, you can close that guy up. Let's look. I think I'm going to have to give you guys one other file really quickly. No, I take it back. I'm not going to do that right now. We're going to actually look. Let's do this, guys. Let's do this. All right, we have an option.
Okay.
We've got to get through InDesign tonight. It's probably going to take about half hour, 45 minutes to get through that. So we can take a break right now, come back and do that and be done by roughly 9 o'clock. Or we can soldier on through this right now and be done at about 8:45 and go watch the Cubs game. What's your vote? So we're going to soldier on. Okay, so I'm going to throw this last caveat out to you guys right now, is this. The working files that we're going to use for the InDesign project are copyrighted by Adobe. This actually comes from one of their video tutorials. So this has not happened to me a lot, but it does happen to me. I can get flagged on YouTube for using a copyright file without permission. I am entitled to do that because this is done in an educational setting and you're allowed to use copyrighted material to do educational demonstration. So, but that means I've got to contact Adobe and go through all of this. So I'm going to try. If I get flagged for the copyright, you will not see I'm going to stop this recording. Actually, let's just do that. I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to stop this recording, but I'm going to show you where to see the Adobe version of it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so if you go on, I need everybody to go onto our Moodle site because you need to get the files off of our Moodle site as well. So jump onto our Moodle site. So really quickly, I want to go over what's due for next week. So we are in session 9 today. This is our 9th class. Can you believe it? Okay, number 1, and this is going to happen for next week. If you click on this thing, look under course materials, there are critique groups A and B. If you click on this, you'll see who's in group A and who's in group B. Next week, we need to see something of what you're doing for your final project. It can be a catalog, it can be 2 pictures, it can be tear sheets, it can be, but we need to see something visual. Does that make sense? Say what? Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, because when you said final, I thought you meant the final.
Me. I emailed you.
Oh,
And I said,
got it.
"Final," and then
I couldn't remember who did it. So yeah, so Lauren actually emailed me today and said, does the final need to be prints? And the final does need to be prints, but what you show in class next week does not have to be prints. It can be electronic, but I need something visual that we can all look at and talk about. Okay, so that's group A. And then group B is going to be the week after it. So those of you who are in group B, what can I tell you? It's coming down for you as well. Okay, so that's that part. There's a bunch of things here. They're quick little either text files or PDFs or small films to watch that are all about InDesign. However, we're going to go over the lion's share of it. But I would like for you to look through these over the course of the next couple of weeks. But the thing I wanted to mention is the thing I want you to download right now. If you click on this, how to make brochure with InDesign assets, if you click on that, it will open up. You need to download all of these. So simply click on each one of them individually, and they will all automatically download to your computer or down to your download folder.
Oh, how to make a brochure. So all of these?
You need all of those. So again, how to make a brochure in InDesign assets. Click on the first one, the cover image, and it will download automatically. Click on the map, and it will download automatically. Click on the logo, it will download automatically. The small hiking JPEG, it will download automatically. It's probably going to open up in preview, which is annoying, but nonetheless, it is what it is. And then the small waterfall JPEG, and then the 06 icon, and then the pluralist text. All of those you need to actually download. You don't need to download the README file. And if it opened up all of those things in preview, simply go to preview and quit preview. If you get all these PostScript errors, don't worry about it. It wasn't supposed to open up there in any way. Okay, did that work for you guys? All right. Well, let me just check really quickly back on our website to see what else is going to be happening for next week. So then for next week, the assignments for next week is you're going to use what I need to see from you next week. You should have, in this past week, actually shot the images for your telling a story. If you have not shot it, there's nothing that's due this week, so you still have time to shoot it. What you are going to bring to class next week is a Lightroom catalog of what you shot for this and the InDesign layout that is actually using your images in a layout. And you'll see right here. So it actually suggests that you develop all of your files in Lightroom because most people use JPEGs inside InDesign documents. So just follow the directions here, develop your files in, that you're going to be using in Lightroom, export them as JPEGs, high quality, do not do a size reduction, into a single folder with your last name underscore image underscore files on your desktop. And the reason this matters is that what InDesign does is when you do your, look up at our whiteboard right now, this is your InDesign document right here. And let's say you've got, this is just a bunch of images. So I've got 4 images on my InDesign document. And I've got a folder out on my desktop, and this is what my folders looks like right here. And inside my folder, I've got image 1, image 2, image 3, and image 4. When you actually bring one of your images into InDesign, what it does is it doesn't actually bring the physical image in. It leaves the physical image where it was. It simply brings a preview into it. Does that make sense? If you then move this guy out, if you move this preview, the real image itself, out of the folder, this link is broken and InDesign will not know where your image is and it will not be able to use it. It will flag that for you and tell you, hey, we've lost this, in which case you then move your image back into the folder and the link will be good again. But it's just important to realize that when we're bringing stuff into InDesign, it's not bringing the physical image in, it's just bringing a link into it. So that's why this part matters. It's going to say, since InDesign uses the links to your files, you need to keep them in the InDesign, you need to keep them in this folder that you built on your desktop. Make sense? Yes.
So is this assignment just like taking pictures to tell a story?
Yes, okay, so no, that's great. And typically, the way this assignment was originally written, they suggested that you use your pictures from your Map to Walk, the very first assignment. You're welcome to use those. I don't really care. You're welcome to shoot new work. I don't really care. That's not the purpose of all this. However, that's only the first part of this. The second part of this assignment, so that's the shooting part. The second part of this assignment, and this is actually a pretty good thing to do, instead of trying to create your own original layout, look at a magazine. Find something that you can rip off as far as the layout goes. So if you're doing a story that's like a documentary piece, like the stuff that we were looking at, the Eugene Smith stuff, whatever, you can look at a Life magazine and see how they would lay stuff out. If you're doing a fashion piece, you could look at Vogue and see how they lay things out. If you're doing a psychodrama, whatever, you can look at whatever. You guys get where this is going, right? Find an example of a magazine that is doing the same kind of work that you're doing, right? And then copy that layout. It's that simple. It's going to make this go much faster for you guys. You're not going to have to do original thought here. You can actually look at it, but what you want to try to do is you want to try to emulate their type. You want to try to emulate their layout. Do they use white space? Are they using negative space? Are they doing full bleed photographs? Is it a horizontal piece, a vertical piece? What exactly is it? What kind of type do they use? Is it big? Is it small? Is it always slanted? Is it weird? Whatever. You get to make sense? So that's going to be the second part of this. So again, find something that you can actually use as a source to help you generate this InDesign part. And so then what's going to be due next week will be the Lightroom catalog of your selects that you actually used in this, and the InDesign document itself, the actual layout. That's what I'm going to want to see next week. And then finally, if that wasn't enough, you need to do a self-evaluation. This is online, again, 50 words, not that big of a deal. And then again, the people who are in Group A, you need to bring working files that we can look at. Then this assignment right here to watch or read the tutorials listed. It's all of these tutorials listed right here. That's what that assignment is all about. And then finally, it says to bring one of your composite images to class for test printing. It doesn't necessarily have to be one of your composites. What it needs to be, what we're going to start going into now is the mural assignment. So you're going to end up doing a print in this class, a minimum of 20 by 24. You can go up much larger than that. You can actually get up to a 48 by whatever you want. So it all depends on, I don't know how they're working in the money part of this out now. I'll find that out before next week. But at any rate, so what you need to consider is an image that would actually function as a really large image. And one of the reasons that they consider doing the composite is, again, just like we were talking today, everybody looked at Alex and said, wow, it's so beautiful because it's so big, and everybody else is really little. So that's the only reason they say consider your composite. However, it can be anything you want to print big. Are there questions about this? All right. So if you copied all of those files to your download folder and you go to your desktop and you find your download folder, you should actually, what I want to do is put these into their own unique folder. So in order to do that, come to download folders. If you look at your image arrangement the way I've got mine, so instead of having icons or a list view, come over to this third one. And then you need to, on this drop-down menu, come down to Date Added. And if you do that, the 6 images that you just downloaded will be sitting at the very top of your screen. And you need to tell me if they are or they aren't. Did that work for you guys?
I treat it a different way, so mine are already in my
Okay, as long as you've got all the files that you know, there should be 6 files. I don't have all 6 of mine right here, but there should be 6 of these guys because I've been doing this all day today. At any rate, if you hold down this Shift key and the Command key and hit N, it will actually bring up an untitled folder for you, and just call this InDesign Assets. And it will also be up there because you just added it. And then click on your on those images and the text file and drag it inside of InDesign Assets. And you can leave it in the download folder if you want. It doesn't matter. Or you can drag it to your desktop. It doesn't make any difference as long as you can find it. Did that work for you, Guy? Did anybody not get the digital assets? All right, there's 6 files. Okay, so we're going to start up InDesign. So if you go to the application folder, and it's actually called Adobe InDesign, you should hopefully have CC 2015 version of this, and go ahead and launch it. I don't know why this is, but this is the single slowest loading program probably that you can still use on a Macintosh.
It's fixed in 17.
Oh, it is? Oh, that would be nice because this is a pain in the ass. Okay, and you should get a dialog box up that looks like this. Is everybody good with this so far? Okay, so let me grab. Oh, before I do that, let me show you one other thing really quick. So you remember I just said, if for some reason when you look at these things that I get flagged for the copyright thing, this thing right here, right above the assets on our Moodle site, how to make a brochure with InDesign, simply click on that link. It will take you to the video tutorial that I'm going to present to you tonight. So. Okay, so first things first, in InDesign, I like to change how InDesign actually works. Now, there are designers who, if you're a really serious magazine designer or any sort of layout designer, you work in units of measure called picas. A pica is actually 1/6 of an inch. In my opinion, that gets to be very confusing to work with. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually change that behavior. So I'm going to come up to the InDesign menu, to the drop-down menu at the top, and I'm going to come down to Preferences, and I'm going to come down to Units and Increments. And when you do that, you will actually see that you have actually got units and increments under your ruler units. Yours probably says picas, doesn't it? You need to click that drop-down menu and come down to inches, not inches decimal, inches. And then do the very same thing for vertical. And now your measurements will actually be in inches, which is something you guys are probably used to working with. And go ahead and say okay to that. Say what? So again, up to InDesign, down to Preferences, look up at my screen, Preferences, Units and Increments, and change this ruler units, the very top one, change the drop-down menu for horizontal from picas to inches, not inches decimals, but just inches, and do the very same thing for vertical. And then say okay. Make sense? So the next thing we're going to do, even though this is a new dialog box, the way this whole thing works, this is now, guys, get ready, because this is how the new version of Photoshop is going to look as well. This is now the opening screen. It doesn't mean that you don't still have the other stuff that you can get to. It's just a new screen, but I'm going to do this old school. So I'm going to come up to the File menu, and I'm going to come down to New, and we are going to create a new document. So when the new document opens up, this is where you go in and you can actually create, we're going to create this new document to work with in InDesign. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change it. What we are going to build here is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take essentially a horizontal, I'm making a horizontal brochure. It's going to be a horizontal piece of paper like this. It's going to be two-sided, and it's going to have 3 panels to it. So it'll look like this. Make sense? That's what we're going to go for, double-sided. All right? So to do that, we are going to say first that the number of pages you want. We want 2 pages, so go ahead and put 2 in there. We are going to uncheck facing pages, and the reason we're going to uncheck facing pages is facing pages are this. It's in a book, right? You would have page 1 here on the right-hand side, page 2 on the left. That's not what I'm doing. I am doing 2 pages that one is on one side and one is on the other. There is no facing page to this. So you uncheck facing pages. If you were doing a magazine layout and you wanted it to look like Vogue or Bazaar, you would use facing pages. Make sense? All right. If you also click on the little preview button down at the bottom of this, put a check mark down here, you will actually get a preview of what your images are, what it's beginning to actually look like. So are we good so far? All right, so 2 pages, uncheck facing pages. We're going to go ahead and leave it letter sized. What? To preferences. Down to preferences. You need to cancel out of here. Preferences, units and increments. Change picas to inches. Nope. And the other picas to inches. Say okay. And then up to new. File. 2 pages here. Uncheck facing pages. That can stay exactly as it is. Okay. So this is a horizontal brochure. So in orientation, click on landscape view and you will see your preview goes to landscape view. For the number of columns, we are going to change this to 3. You can actually type in 3 or use the little arrows to go up and down. For the margins, we are actually changing the margins on this guy. Hang on 1 second. We're going to change the margins of this. So we need to look at this image and see what's really going on here in this preview. So what's happened now is we've created the page. These are the columns that we've actually got going on in here. These are actually called gutters. And what a gutter is an indication, this is where a fold actually happens. You have gutters in magazines. You would only have, again, they would be between the facing pages. But now that we're going to do a 3-fold here, it's actually, there's going to be gutters in between. These are actually considered to be the margins right here. So you can see I've got a 1/2-inch margin going all the way around this guy. That's too big of a margin. So we're going to change this margin. So if you click in here, I want you to just drag across that and type in 0.1667. It's the very same value as the gutter up here. So 0.1667. Then if you hit the tab key once, you will see that all of the other margins actually go to the very same thing. And the reason that happens is because you've got this little chain link right here. This little chain link, when it's enabled, and it is enabled by default, will change all of your bottom, left, and right settings to whatever you put into the top one. And then finally, this is exactly what we want here for this document. Go ahead and say, okay. Did this work for everybody? No?
So fast.
It's simple. Click on horizontal, 2 pages. Uncheck facing pages. That did not go to horizontal, or this is just, somehow this is inverted. So you need to, let's just start over. Hit cancel. Go up to new. Actually, we need to get rid of it because this actually exists. So go up to new now. And then there's 2 pages. Uncheck facing, that part's great. Now hit landscape. Landscape. Click on the preview so we can see it. That's right. Put the number of columns, 3. And then this value, then right here, it's the same number right here, 0.1667. So I can drag across, yeah, remember that, 167. And then hit the tab key, don't hit anything else. And everybody else is good and say okay. Okay. So now we're actually going to place images. Are you ready? So in putting images into an InDesign document in Photoshop is actually called place. I mean in InDesign, it's called placing an image. So if you come up to the file menu and you come down to place, this is the command that you actually use to put images in Photoshop. So to do that, go ahead and click on place and a dialog will open up and you need to go find those 6 images that you just downloaded. So you need to go to the asset folder and you need to find the very first image. The first one should be 01 cover image. Can you guys find this? Can anybody not find this? And you can select all 6. So again, hold down the shift key and select the last one. We can load all the images that we are going to use in InDesign all at once. You don't need to place these one at a time. You can load them up one at a time. Does that make sense? Okay. Are we good? All right. So go ahead and say open to that. And you will see that you end up with a cursor that's actually got your first image on it. Now, this is going to go in order, and that's why those images were numbered 0, 01, 02, 03, 04, 05. Make sense? Okay, so with this first image selected, come up to the corner of your image, and we're going to actually do the very corner of the page. We're going to do the entire thing. We're not going to stay inside the margin. We're actually going to do the full screen. Right? I want you to click and drag out. And when you drag out, you need to go far enough. We're going to shoot past this screen. You need to go far enough that you actually get the image along the bottom and let go. And this is what you should get. Yes.
It's not letting me take in all of
Cancel. Go to place again. Yeah, you guys try to. Although, don't worry about this now. Just do what you can as far as this part goes, and we'll get to it. So do the cover image. Yeah, do that, and just you'll see when we get to the parts not to use. One says okay. This is asking me. Say okay. Okay. So click and drag all the way down. Yeah. Okay. So then we need to go to the second page. We need to go to the back side of this brochure. So to get to the second page, if you look at again at InDesign, there is a series of palettes on the side over here that are not too dissimilar to the ones we've had in Photoshop. There is a layers one in here. There's some swatches down here, but you want to click on the page one. And if you click on that, you will get a flyout, and this is how you navigate your pages in InDesign. Does that make sense? So if you then double click on page number 2, this is what our page number 2 actually looks like. However, I made a mistake. I've still got something that I need to do in page number 1. So to do that, I'm going to double click on page number 1 to go right back to it. The second image that I'm going to actually place, and if you want to get rid of this palette, if it's in your way, simply click on it again and it will collapse. The second thing I'm going to put in is actually the title of this. And to do the title, you'll see this is my third column right over here. On the right-hand side, I've got 1 column here, I've got 2 columns here, and I've got 3 columns here. That's actually happened to Alec as well. And did you get an error message when you were trying to import this stuff?
Yeah.
It did not download then the files that it was supposed to download. All right, hang on.
The math is number 2.
Yeah, number 3 is the title.
Hang on. I'm going to give you, I'm going to, fuck this. I'm going to give you, we're going to just copy this. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to give everybody the right assets. So hold on 1 second. So guys, you need to cancel out of this. You need to get rid of that file and you need to build a new one. So I will do that with you in just 1 second. Let me just get this thing up to our Dropbox. Exactly where I showed you on those, the videos. It's on our, we're recording this, but if I get flagged for it, they are not going to be, my version is not going to be there, but the link on our Moodle site will go walk you through every step of this using these images. Make sense? All right, in the Dropbox for our class is a folder called Assets. Drag that to your desktop. Back in our InDesign program, we are simply going to close this up and do not save it. And we're going to start from scratch. So up to the File menu, down to New, down to Document. A document box will open up. Change the number of pages to 2. Uncheck Facing Pages. Click on the Landscape Orientation button. So in the Page Size dialog box, click to flip it sideways. Your Preview button down here should still be checked so that you can see what it is you're actually building. Change the number of columns to 3. And then change the top margin. Just click and drag across it and put in the same value that's in the gutter dialog box, that 0.1667. So 0.1667. Then hit the Tab key and all of your other borders, all of your other margins will change to that very same value and say OK. Are we all good now? Okay, finally, keep your fingers crossed, guys. Up to the File menu, down to Place, and navigate to that asset folder that you just copied. And hopefully, you can, the very first one should be picked. You can hold down the Shift key and select the first 6, 01 through 06. Did that work? Perfect. And say Open. And then again, to actually place our first image, because all 6 are now loaded onto this place cursor. Look up at my screen, click in the top left-hand corner like this. Click and drag all the way down so that the box that's being drawn out goes below the bottom frame, goes below the bottom edge. The picture is actually bigger than our image right now. That's okay. It's bigger than the brochure that we're going to print. But I need it to be all the way to the bottom. I need this thing to be top to bottom. It's just the image is longer. We will fix that later. Did that work? So the second thing is you will notice, hang on. You're good. Just keep going down a little longer. You're good. Let go. Perfect.
Why is it pixelated?
But then, why is it pixelated? What did I just tell you here? You are not bringing the image in. You are bringing a preview in. But you still only have the map. You don't have the second one.
It was there before. Everyone had it.
Yeah, I have the map. I don't know.
Wait, let me try again. It was there before.
Try going back in
wait,
history.
there we go.
Yeah, hit Command Z. Just hit Command Z and go back in history. Click and drag out again.
Did you go to the same time?
I did the asset thing.
Yeah, got it.
Redo it.
Yeah, but it's not. So hit Command Z to undo it. Hit Command Z again. Command Option Z. We'll just try placing again. Come up to File. Hit Place again. And it's these, all these guys.
This is the first one.
The desktop one. Yeah. Hopefully this is going to work on the email as well. Yeah, but try that. Okay, so the second one is to set the title. So again, we're going to do in this panel that's the farthest right-hand panel, simply come to the guide. This is the gutter. This represents the gutter. Come to the edge of the guide. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look up at my screen and click and drag out to go to the other guide. So look up at my screen. I'm right between these two guides. Does that make sense? Does that work for you guys? Click and drag out and let go. That just put in the title for this guy. Are we all good on this? You're killing it, Lexi. You're just killing it. Click on Pages to get the flyout menu, to get our navigator, and go to the second of the pages. If you double click on it, this is now the reverse side of it. This is the one that's got the map on it. If you come up simply into the corner right here, we're not going to do any click and drag at all. We're just going to double click. If you double click, then what, or you click once. Yeah, just hit Command Z if you double click. Just click once. This will drop your image in, and the image will come in actually the size of, this is actually scaled at 100%. That's actually what we've got going right here. Does this make sense? The next one is my next image that I'm going to load right here. I'm going to come to the first of the panels on the columns on the left-hand side, and I'm going to, again, line it up with the guide on the left-hand side. I'm going to simply click and drag over to the second guide and let go. Then I'm going to come for my last image, and I'm going to click and drag over again. And you will notice when you do this, when they do line up, you get those two little green arrow things at the bottom. That's actually indicating that these two images are going to be exactly the same size. And let go. And then finally, we've got a little logo guy out here on the end. And all I'm going to do is actually come right next to this last guide and simply click once, and it will drop the logo out. So are you guys with me so far? Save your work. So come up to the File menu, come down and do a Save As. And on your desktop, which is where I'm going to save mine, we're going to just call it Brochure. And say, OK, and save it. Are we good? So the next thing we are going to do is we're going to go back to page 1. So again, in the page palette, double click on page 1. It'll take us back up to page 1. We're going to come over and click the line tool. It's this guy right here. If you click on the line tool and then come over, what we're going to do is we're simply going to draw a line underneath this thing that says the pluralist. And I'm going to come down about is the same width that it is. So look up at my screen to see get some idea of what I'm talking about. If you click and drag to the left, you'll see that you can do a line. You can draw it at sort of any angle. But if you hold down this Shift key, it will restrict it to doing a perfectly horizontal line. And simply drag out a line from side to side. And again, when you get it exactly the same width as the pluralist, it'll show you that. And let go. Let me do that again because I did not hold the Shift key down before I let go. All right, so then let go. So this is now a line that we've drawn out. And if you look up in your options bar up here, your line is actually controlled by options that we've got going on up here. So if you want to make your line thicker, which I do, you simply click on this drop-down menu. Again, look up at the screen that I'm talking about right here. This is line width, is right up here. If you click on this drop-down menu, you can change this to a 2-point line, and you will see that your line actually just got thicker. Did that work for everybody? Okay, so I need to change the color of this line, though. Right now it's black. I don't want it to be black. So if you come over to your palette over here on the side, and you click on Swatches, it will open up a swatch, the swatch palette. And you can see right now that there's a double little box up here at the top. Let me see if I can get this thing bigger. No, let's not go there. You can see right here, this looks pretty much like the foreground background color of Photoshop. you need to, although it's a little deceiving on this, in this case, what we're changing, what we want to change is the stroke of this line. The stroke of the line is that sort of like outlined guy. If you click on it, you will see that that little outline guy is in the foreground. It's lower and to the right. That is actually the active one. If you click on the double-headed arrow, you will actually reverse those. This would now be the fill color, but we want to actually do the stroke color. So it's that little outline box is what you want down there. And we're going to create a brand new color. So come up to the drop-down menu and do New Color Swatch. A dialog box will open up and it will allow you to enter color values. By default, it does CMYK because in design is primarily about printing. However, you could change that to any other thing, but we'll leave CMYK. That's actually what we want here. And yep. You need to click on the outline guy right there. So that is the active one. You have it, and then you just click the normal. I mean, none. So we're going to hit, no, we're going to hit new. Just come up here to the drop down menu here. I was about to here. Those three lines. Drop down menu, new color swatch. And these are the values you want to put in. So the values that you want to enter into this, guys, hello. The values you want to put into this are, so let me go back up to there again. Click new color swatch. So we're going to put in 0 cyan. You can use the tab keys to move in between these two. For magenta, we are going to put in 7, which is 7%. Hit the tab key. For yellow, we're going to put in 100%. Hit the tab key and put in 0 black. And we've just made a yellow color. And go ahead and say OK. And if we did that right, our stroke line should be yellow. And it is. You can't tell yet because it's still selected. It's still highlighted. We're now going to make a copy of this line. And in order to make a copy of this line, simply hover your cursor over the line, hold down the Shift key and the Option key, and click and, nope, sorry, that was wrong. Yeah, I know. Oh, no. Hold down the Shift and the Command key and click that line and drag down, and it will drag out a second version of that line and just sort of bring it down like this. Actually, mine just moved. That's what I thought.
Mine worked with Command and Shift.
Oh, thanks. See, I should get Brian to actually teach this class. At least this part of it. Got it. All right, so I'm going to click the arrow, the black-headed arrow up at the top, come over on my line, hold down the Shift, Option, click, and drag, and I get my second line, and it comes down. Whew, thank God. Yours is still black? Then click on the line to make it active. Use the black arrow key right up here to click on the line to make it active. And then click on this drop down right here. This is the swatch color right here. This will be the stroke color right here. So click on that color. Your swatch palette will open up, and at the very bottom should be the color that you just created. And simply click on that. I want them both to be yellow. Are we good? Yeah. All righty. Go back to get rid of the swatches palette, simply click on it. It will collapse again. Go back to pages, open it up, and double click to go back to our second page right now. On our second page, we're going to do another line. So again, grab the line tool, and we're going to start here at the very top. We are going to start on the edge of it right now, and simply click, and again, drag across, holding down the Shift key to get a perfectly straight line. And I'm simply going from one margin to the other margin, all the way across the top. So it drew out another line for me. You'll notice that this actually defaults back to that 1 point and black. We're going to change the weight of this line now to 7 points. So again, come up to the point drop-down menu and come down to 7. You'll see it makes a much, much thicker line. Again, these are the kind of things that you're going to be looking for in the layout that you're ripping off for your image. We are looking for graphic elements that are going to be a part of your page, and lines end up play a huge role in a lot of layout work. So at any rate, I've got this guy. We are also going to change its color. So while it is still selected and active, come over to the swatches palette again. We are going to click on the flyout, click again on the drop-down menu and come to New Color Swatch. A dialog box will open up, and again, we type in a new set of values here. So for the new set of values here, we want to do 95% cyan. Hit the tab key. As far as magenta goes, we're going to do 20%. Hit the tab key. For yellow, we're going to do 50%. Hit the tab key. And 0% black. And we've created a light cyan, well, not a light, a medium cyan color. And go ahead and say OK to that. You will also notice that that InDesign adds this to what's called your CC library. This is actually a library of material that you can keep in the cloud that Adobe actually hosts. They're really big about selling this. However, more importantly to you guys, if you click on the swatch tab, you will see at the very bottom of that swatch tab, you will see the 2 custom colors that we've just made. And the values are actually entered into them. So you can see that first yellow that we made is right here. The second cyan that we made is right here. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so we can collapse up the swatches panel, click on the page flyout again. Let's go back up to page 1. Now, you don't always have to do this. You also will notice that there is a scroll bar on the side. You can actually use that scroll bar to go back up to page 1 as well. It's just when you get into really deep, long, in-depth documents, this page navigation helps you get around. If you've got 150 pages, you do not want to be using that scroll bar. So at any rate, going back up to page 1, you will notice again that I said that our image was too long. You can see the image stretches beyond the border of our document right here. So to change that, again, click on the black-headed arrow, come over to the edge of your image. You can see it's a blue border that's around it, and simply click on that. And when you do, you will see that you get a double-headed arrow. You can then simply click on that corner and you can drag this in. You'll notice that you're not changing the image size. What you're really doing is cropping the image. So I'm simply dragging this so that the edge of my image lines up with the far the far right-hand edge of my project and the bottom edge of it as well, and let go. And again, we didn't crop. What we've done is we've actually cropped the image. We didn't transform it. We didn't scale it. We simply cropped it. Did that work for everybody? Then say what? Yeah, then I would simply save your image. So go up to, or save your project. Go up to the file menu and come down to save. Are we good? Okay, we're gonna add text now. Thank God. So to add text to this, you come over to the text tool. It's the type tool. It's the very same thing as in Photoshop. And I want you to click on the type tool and then come over and right under the title that says pluralist, I'm going to click right on the edge of the guideline and I'm going to drag out a text box. And then I'm going to put down the keycaps on my keyboard because I want to do this in all caps. And I'm just going to type in the word outdoor. And you'll actually see, well, in my case, my keycaps was not down. So let's try that again. Type out, and that part worked fine. Then again, my text tool is still active. You can see it is because we can come down below it. I want you to click and drag out a second text box. This second text box is actually going to go between your 2 yellow lines, but it's not going to go all the way down. I'm going to simply drag out a line that looks about half of that space. And then I'm going to type in the words. Hang on one second here. Wild Isles, W-I-L-D. Hit the return once because I want this on I want 2 lines of text. And Isles, I-S-L-E-S. Are you guys good on that? And then finally, the text tool is still active. I want you to click and drag out another text box underneath the one that had wild aisles in it. And in this one, I want you to type with a light, A-L-I-T-E gear. And you don't need to worry about anything else right now. Did that work for you guys? Then finally, I want you to come into the bottom of the center panel right here. You'll see the text tool is still active. It's actually still going. And I want you to click and drag out another text line between the guidelines of the center panel. Again, you don't want to cross the gutter. You want it on either side, just between those two. Does that make sense? Then you need to go, before we do anything else, you need to go out to the desktop. So simply click into your Finder to go out to the desktop, and you will see that there's a text file in your asset folder. If you double click on that text file, it will open up a set of predetermined text. You don't have to write the text in all of this. You can actually do copy and pasting. So that text box should have opened up, and you should see at the very top, there's a copyright 2013 Adobe Systems. Do you guys all have that? You want to select simply this first paragraph of text. Simply click and drag over it. Then go up to the edit menu and come down to copy, or use the Command C. That will actually copy this text. Go back to your InDesign document. You will notice that the blinking cursor is still sitting inside of that text box. And then up to the edit menu down to paste or Command V, either one. It will put that information in that text box. Are we good so far? Then scroll down to get to page number 2. And in page number 2, what's interesting is I want to do text boxes underneath these pictures, but I think my pictures are too low. So to move your pictures, go back up and click on the black-headed arrow. Come down and click on the image that you want to move. So if your images are a little bit higher, don't worry about it. But mine are too tight to the bottom. So I'm simply going to click and drag it up to raise it up in space. I'm going to actually bring it up a little bit higher. I'm going to do the same thing on the other image that's right next to it. I'm going to click and drag it up higher. You will notice that you get a series of guidelines that'll indicate when these two have lined up. There's the green guidelines that we're actually getting. And let go. These are now aligned again, and we're good to go. I'm actually going to do the same thing on the little logo guy. I'm simply going to click on him and raise him up a little bit. And then I'm going to go back to my text tool, and I'm going to come and do a text box underneath each picture. So I'm going to start on this first one, click and drag out. So I've got a text box underneath it. I'm going to go back to my text file, which is probably in the text editor. And oh, actually, yeah, I'm going to copy this first caption right here. So I'm going to select and drag across first caption, and it says Journey to the Banyan Cliffs. Again, up to the edit menu, down to copy. Back into my InDesign document and simply do Command V or edit paste. Yep. Your photo is what? Hit Command Z to undo that. Good. And come up and select this guy. Select the image so that you've got all of those guys around it. That's what's happening. It's because you're clicking on the note. You're clicking in this area here. Sure. Text tool. So, and then copy the text for the second caption. Oh, first draw out the text box. Again, click, drag out, text box. Back into text edit. Copy the second caption. Back into InDesign and paste it. And then finally, I've got one more thing of text that I need to copy. So I'm going to come up. And I'm going to come to this area that's right sort of underneath that blue line. And I'm going to click, and I'm going to actually drag out across a couple of gutter, I'm going to go across several gutters on this. So look up at my screen to sort of see what I'm talking about. You can see I'm going across kind of the whole top of the brochure, not all the way to the end, but enough. And then again, back into text edit. And my text, whatever text editor you got it open in. And you want to simply copy the text of the main paragraph. And come back to InDesign and paste it. So, who is not this far? Are we sort of good? We good? All right, save your document again. Command S to save this guy. Okay, so then we're just going to do a little bit of tweaking on how this whole thing actually looks. So in order to tweak how this whole thing looks, with the text tool still active, I'm scrolling up to the top of my image, and I want you to click and drag across the word that says outdoor. And when you do that, it'll now be selected. You will also see the text, the font that it actually is. If you click, and look up at my screen to see where I'm talking about, if you click in this font menu, you can actually, it will make it active. You can actually search you can search fonts by name. You can just start typing them in. So I want to do this with a lithos, so type in L-I-T-H, and already you will get, it'll narrow it down. And the options that we've got right now are Lithos Pro Black. That's the one that I want you to use. So everybody understands what we're talking about when I say we're changing the font, right? It's the styling of the letters. That's what we're actually changing here. So go ahead, once you get that, the Lithos font, go ahead and select it to actually make sure it is a part of that. And then, hang on one second. I want you to then, we're going to make the font bigger. So if you come right next to it, see that thing that says 12 point? That 12 point is how big the size of the text is. Text is actually done in what they call points. The thing right underneath it is the spacing of multiple lines of text. We don't want to change that, but we do want to change this 12 point. If you click on the drop-down menu, you will come down and you can change it to 18 point. And then finally, we can do two other things to it. If you come over here, see the thing that looks like a big T with that's sort of a circle around it? That is actually the color of your text. If you click on this flyout menu, you will see that it brings you right back to the swatches palette. In our case, we want to pick paper. Now, paper is a little misleading. What paper really means is that this text is going to be transparent in your image. So whatever color paper you're printing on is the color you will get. So if you printed this thing out on a piece of white paper, the text would be white. But if you painted this out on a piece of red paper, the text would be red. So it's basically letting the paper show through. That's what paper is. Does that make sense? So, but in our case, InDesign assumes that it's going to be white. So we can go ahead and leave it as white. We're going to go ahead and leave it as paper. And then finally, we want to center this text, and it's these justification boxes that are right over here. Again, look up at my screen if you don't see where I'm talking about. The first one on the left-hand side would be aligning the text to the left, which is where it is right now. The one in the middle will center your text. The one next to it will actually send it to the right. We want to click on the centered one right here, and we're actually good to go. This is actually now done. It still looks like it's black type, but that's only because it's been selected and highlighted. If you come down and select the wild aisles right now, you'll see that the outdoor actually did change. So did that work for everybody? Okay, so select wild aisles. For wild aisles, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to change it to Lithos. Pro Black. We're going to change its font size to 48 point. or not. I just lost mine with 48 point. Mine's too big. So I'm actually going to take it down to 30 point, and that keeps both of them in there, which is fine. I'm going to do the exact same thing in terms of filling it as paper, and I'm also going to center it. And then finally, I'm going to come down to my with a light gear. I'm going to select that. And with the light gear, we're going to also change that font to Lithos Black. So again, Litho, and select the first one, Lithos Pro Black. It changes it to that. I'm going to change its point size to 16 point. But if you click and you do your drop-down menu, you'll see there is no 16 point. You can type values in here. So simply drag across the point size and type in 16. And then again, we are going to do the fill color as paper. And we're finally going to center that text as well. Are we good to go on this so far? You guys good? I'm going to scroll down now just a little bit. I want to go after the copyright part that's right here. So again, text tool is still active. Simply click and drag across all of that text. And in this case, for the copyright, we're going to leave it as Minion Pro, but I am going to change its size. I'm going to make it smaller. So again, click on the drop-down menu, come down to 9 point. And then again, we are simply going to center that text. And we are also going to use paper for the fill color. So again, click on the flyout menu and select paper. And then you can simply click outside of that and you'll see basically what your image is beginning to look like. Is everybody good with this so far? Okay, finally, we're going to come down to page 2. You can either scroll down or use the page flyout menu to double click on this. For the page, for this stuff right here, we are going to select the main paragraph. So it's the one that's at the very top. This text that's at the very top up here. We're going to do a different font for this one. We're going to do a Garamond on this one. So again, click on the top on the font and type in G-A-R-R. Oh, sorry, G-A-R. That will actually get you, and the one that I want you to actually use is going to be this one right here, this Garamond Premier Pro Bold. If you click on that guy, it will actually change this to that particular font. We are going to change the font size to 24 points. And then finally, we are going to change the fill color of this to our custom color. So if you click on that flyout menu, remember the colors that we built. If you scroll to the bottom of your swatch palette, you will actually see here's that cyan color that we built right here. That's the line at the very top. If you click on that, you will actually fill it with that color. And you can leave the alignment all the way to the left. We're not going to change the alignment at all. To get that flyout menu to go away, simply click out of it, and to see so that this is not highlighted, you can simply click outside of that, and you can see that we've changed, again, font size, color, all the above. Does that make sense? We good on this? Finally, we're going to change these guys down here at the bottom. If you click on these on the captions, we're going to actually click on this caption right here, and for caption 1, we are going to simply change its fill color to that same blue. So again, I'm clicking that flyout menu to get the swatches palette and clicking on this to change this to blue. And I'm going to do the same thing on this other guy right here. And we're going to change it to blue as well. Finally, you should know that you don't have to have the same text in a paragraph. You can actually change it. So for instance, I'm going to leave the top ones here, the titles in this Minion Pro. But if you click and you drag across the Clear Calm Sunshine Day 1, you can then come back up and change its font. We're going to do a Courier font for this. So C-O-U, and you will see you can change to Courier. We're going to do a Courier Regular for that guy. And we're going to do the same thing for the other first one right here. So again, type on that font menu, Courier Regular, C-O-U-R, just get to C-O-U, and it'll be the only thing left, and it's the one on the bottom, the Courier Regular. So you can see that text boxes can actually control, can handle different fonts. And again, finally come up and save your work. So does this make sense where we're going with all of this, guy? So finally, if you click the black-headed arrow, you will see we can go back up, scroll back up to the top, or click on your page number 1, that you can start to move things around if you actually want to. So for instance, if you wanted to move this line down, you can simply, with the black-headed arrow selected, you could click on this line and simply drag it down to reposition it. You can do the same thing with your text boxes, just like we did with the images. You can move stuff around so that your layout looks better and more balanced. You could also go in with the text tool again. And reselect something, a text box, reselect the text in here, and change its color, change its size, change its font, the whole 9 yards. You guys get where this is going, right? So are we good on this so far? So finally, the last step in all of this, the thing that's going to finally end up happening here is we're going to actually, to use this thing, you need to actually export this as a PDF. So to do that, you come up to the File menu, down to Export. A dialog box will open up, and it'll offer to give it the name, and it's going to name it the same as your InDesign document, but in our case, it's going to have this .pdf on it, so you can simply leave it as that name. You want to make sure that the format in this drop-down menu, you want to make sure that this format is Adobe PDF Print. And go ahead and hit Save. And when that happens, you will see that you have all sorts of settings that you can control on this. So File, Export. With this name, make sure that the drop-down menu is Adobe PDF Print. Hit Save. This dialog will open up. The only thing I want you to change in this dialog box is you want to check this View PDF after exporting, and then hit Export. And this will now open up in Acrobat Reader, and this is your first InDesign document. Are we good on this? Okay, I want to show you one last thing just to make sure that you understood what we were talking about. But we're good on this, right? So what's going to be due next week is your catalog of images and your layout, your InDesign layout. That's what I need you to bring to me, okay? Makes sense?
Do you want it as a PDF or as a
I want it as an InDesign, but you need to bring me, or again, you've got to keep this folder relationship thing going, right? You need to bring me the assets in their one folder, right? You're going to bring me your catalog, but this InDesign, your InDesign layout, it's going to be the InDesign document and a folder of your assets. Make sense? Because without the assets, I don't see anything. Are we good? Okay, so the final thing I want to show you about this really quickly is go back into InDesign. I just want to make sure you understand the facing page thing. So back into InDesign. You can go ahead and close this up. If it asks you to save it, go ahead and do save it. It's really just remembering those settings, the PDF export settings. Come up to the File menu, come down to New, Document again. We're just opening this up again. So let's say, for instance, you did want to do a magazine layout. Typically, layouts typically they have an even number of pages. Now, conceivably, electronically, you can have an odd number of pages. But if you think about a magazine's always got two sides to a page, so you always have an even number of pages. You never have odd number of pages in a magazine. If you tore one page off, you're actually tearing two sides off. You're tearing two pages off. So magazines historically always have two sides to it. Electronic magazines don't necessarily have to be that way. They can have an odd page on the end. But we're going to assume that this is going to be a conventional print magazine. So type in 6 for the number of pages. We are going to leave facing pages checked. We are going to have this starting as number 1. We can leave this as a horizontal. 8.5 by 11 is fine as far as this goes. I'm not going to add any columns into this. The margins, I might leave like this. I might add something to that. I might not. It depends. This bleed value that sits right down here, though, this is one I want you to know and understand about. In magazine print production, in order to have a full bleed image, you need to overprint the image. It's actually printed larger than the final magazine, and then they cut that part off. It's the only way you can get a full bleed image on a magazine. Does that make sense? The printing is just not exact enough. You can't say to them, okay, print to the very edge. They always print larger, and then they go in and they cut it, and that's how you get full bleed. Does that make sense? So to add a full bleed to your magazine, or to your layout right here, it's this dialogue right here, this bleed. A typical bleed is 1/8 of an inch all the way around your magazine. 1/8 of an inch in decimals is 0.125. So if you type that in and then hit the tab key again, it will enter all of that value into your into the boxes right here. And you will see you get this new red line that goes around your image. That is now your bleed line. So if you were going to add, and you can go ahead and now say okay to this. If you were to add an image to this, well, let's go ahead and add an image to this. Again, let's go up to do place. And pick just the very first, that cover image that we started with. Just go ahead and open that guy up. And you'll see you would actually start up at your bleed line right here and click and drag all the way down to get it to go down to your bottom bleed line. And that would be this image now. What will end up happening is that it will overprint, and then this black line is what will be cut of the image. Does that make sense to everybody? And then finally, one last thing. If you click on your Pages panel to do your flyout, you will see what you've got here. This is your page number 1. Then this is spread. If you click on this, you will go to spread 2-3 and spread 4-5, and then your final page 6. Does that make sense? So when you're doing a magazine layout, unlike the brochure one, that's basically how it'll work. Are there questions about this? Alrighty, let's get the hell out of here. Did everybody drop homework? Do it quick.
So let's do next week is the storyboard thing, like
Not the storyboard. This
storytelling.
InDesign document and your catalog of your
We're
shots.
making our own InDesign
Yes.
document. Okay, with our own images.
Yes.
I just want to make sure, like, what kind of text is it? Like, whatever we want.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yours should be easy. The text part should be the easiest part for
No,
you.
I know. Because it was just all this like dragging and downloading things that kind of like.
It's just that you get to copy and paste. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
It just makes it easier than having to type it all in here. But you can type it all in there too.
So when would you be available to meet next week so I can bring everything in and make sure I'm like up to date, like my redoing this assignment from last week.
Wait, are you? I thought you were going to be gone next week.
I'm gonna be gone this weekend.
Oh, this weekend, and then
I'll
you're
be
coming
back
back.
Monday. I'll be back Monday morning.
The only time I can do, I'm working every single day. I can do it Tuesday night if
Okay.
you want to do it before
I don't
Wednesday.
have classes, so I should.
All
be
right,
able
then
to
hang on one second. Let me stop this recording really quick.
Okay.
No, I just need to put you in my calendar to make sure.
No, you're fine.